Hey, in this video I'm gonna talk about how do you install Google Analytics using Google Tag Manager. More specifically, I'm gonna cover how to use Universal Analytics version, the older one. This is very popular and still relevant for another year, but then we'll need to move to GA4 as the newer version. As an example, I'm using a very simple WordPress site where I'm using Google Sitekit to install GTM for the site, and just for the purpose of this example, I'm showing that the actual snippet of Google Analytics is not installed on the site. And the way to test it that there's nothing installed, one way to do is if we open up Google Tag Manager and go to the preview mode, this will open the tagassistant.google.com. And if we go to our site, this will connect to the front end of our website. And if we go to the previous tab, we can actually see that there is Google Container tag found, and this is only the GTM tag, the Google Tag Manager tag. So no Google Analytics is installed on the website as of right now. So I'm going to go ahead and just close the Tag Assistant because we don't need it. And we'll work only with Google Tag Manager because we don't need to touch the code in any way, and we don't need to do any changes to the website directly. So this is the purpose of using the Tag Manager, not accessing the site exactly. So I'm assuming that you would already have a GA account created. To do that, it's very simple. You just go to analytics.google.com and you sign up, and you follow the very simple instruction where you first agree to the terms and conditions, and you select your country, the currency, and ask a few questions about the industry. Then as soon as you get to this page, this is the main dashboard of GA. We can see that there is some data, and this is because this account was connected to the website before, and for the purpose of this video, I'm just showing that right now it's empty. The way to connect Google Tag Manager would be by creating a new tag. And first of all, we need to set up a tag, which we can call like a configuration tag. That would connect the overall Universal Analytics tag to the platform. So the way that would work is it would track all the page views. And for that to work, we need to select the Google Analytics setting variable. Google Analytics setting, and so Google Analytics setting is actually just an ID that you have in your Google Analytics account. I'm going to show you how this works right now. So we can go ahead and create a new variable from here. This is very useful to do it like that through a variable, just because you will need this variable to reuse in a different tag when you're going to be tracking events. This I'm going to call like GA setting, just like as an example, or we can call it like GA tracking ID. So you go to the admin panel in your Google Analytics account. You have 3 levels of your Google Analytics. One is the account, that is where the general management happens. Then on the opposite end, it is a view, and the view, you can think of it as the set of the reporting, which can have some filters to it. And then the middle is actually your website where everything is connected. So if you go to tracking info, you can actually see the tracking code, which this is a general example of what you need to do, but this is the tracking ID that you would need for your website implementation. So if we had to head to Google Tag Manager, we save this tracking ID, we save this variable, and we see that this is actually being selected in the field, the Google Analytics setting. So whenever you reference a variable in GTM, in Google Tag Manager, you need to use these double curly braces with a variable name. And then if we're going to track all the page views, we need to trigger this for all the pages. So we're going to have a trigger, and all pages is a standard trigger that exists by default in GTM. So we're going to go ahead and save that. And now if we go to preview mode, so this is not yet submitted, right? So we're just previewing the current state of the Google Tag Manager container. So if we connect to the website, then in the Tag Assistant, we'll actually see that the configuration tag is here. Now, if we go to Google Analytics and we go to the real-time reporting, we can actually see that we have these page views. So now it's actually being tracked. It's not yet published, but we have page tracking enabled, and that actually works on the website. It would likely not be enough to track just the page views on the website, because you don't usually want to see just the traffic, but also some conversions. So I'm going to show how to enable tracking events for, let's say, a click of this button. This is going to be a custom event that will fire to Google Analytics, and we will create a goal that would count this event as a conversion. We're going to need to inspect this button, because we will need to use its class. We'll need to go to the Google Tag Manager, and we'll need to create a new trigger. The trigger we will be using just like the tracking of the link clicks, but for that to properly work, we would need to work on the variables. So the variables, as we saw, they are some parameter that we can put inside either the tag or actually the trigger as well. And we need to configure the built-in variables. So to do that, we actually need to enable the click variables that we don't have right now. So we can just go ahead and enable all of them. You actually, for the different tracking purposes, you may want to enable all of them, but this is not important for us at this moment. So for example, right now you can also enable like a container ID variable or a random number, which would be just a random number whenever it's called. Right now we enabled like all the click variables, and we will be able to use them in the triggers. Right now we're gonna go ahead and create a new one. We're going to call it something simple that we can understand. And now when configuring the clicks, we will select just links. We would select some link clicks, and now we can actually select all the new variables that we have just selected. So we can configure the click classes, and this is something that we can get directly from the site. So because it's WordPress, it adds some default classes. So it's going to be this one. And then we can add something else, which would be, for example, let's say click URL, and we can be more specific on then how do we want to match it, but we can use just the contains for our example. So the click URL contains, so we can copy that. And now if we save it, we have a trigger that would work every time whenever someone clicks that button. So now we have a trigger, and we need to create a tag for that. So we have a GA configuration tag, and the next one would be actually GA, let's call it a button click event. So it's going to be something simple that you can understand again once you will have many of those. So for Universal Analytics, you always select Universal Analytics tag, but the track type would be event, not a page view for that purpose. So GA actually had a few levels of like describing an event. So GA4 that doesn't have that anymore, and is a lot more flexible in that sense. So you only have a name, and then you can add some like extra variables if you want to. But here we can actually add some levels of how do we structure the events. So the category, we can call it, let's say, content. Action would be click, and then the label would be another page, button, whatever you want. And so the value can actually be the number. And if you use that for some goal settings, for some like optimization measurement purposes, you can add some value to that. And then we need to select the Google Analytics settings, which is our GA tracking ID. You see, like we created a variable, and now we can reuse it in many tags. In the advanced settings, we can set some firing priority. We can select how often should it fire. So we can call it once per event or like once per page, in case a button on a page can be clicked more times, or we can ask either before or after that click to fire some other tag if we need to. And there's some additional settings that you may want to check if you need those. In terms of the triggers, we need to select the trigger that we have just created. It's the button click, and then when we save it, we can actually test it. So we go to the preview mode. Once again, we connect to the website. It will open a website in a new page. And now in the Tag Assistant tab, we can see what tags are being fired. So we see that the configuration tag did fire, but the button click event didn't. And everything that happened was that just the site was loaded. Now, if we click go to another page, that should actually fire the other event. Let's see if that happens. So we move to another page, and if we go back, we can see that actually the link click event happened, and then the button click event, this has just fired and pushed to Universal Analytics. Let's see if we can see something in GA. Right now we can see that there is one person on the active on another page, and there was one event, you see, with the content category with an event action click. This is actually now being tracked. So now we can safely stop the preview, go back to the Google Tag Manager and submit the changes. So now we can say GA integration. And now that works for the whole website, even without the preview. So we added 2 tags, 1 trigger and 1 variable. And the last thing that we may want to do in GA for that to work properly is if we go to the admin settings and on the view level, we can look through the goals. We can create a goal, which would be our goal based on an event. So we can call it a button click or whatever would be specific enough for you. And then if we select an event, we can just select whatever we actually had. So it was a content click, and then if the label also matches this value, then we will have a goal which would be counted in the reporting as a goal. So right now there is no conversions, of course, because we have set this up just right now. But if we, let's say, go to the acquisition tab and see the traffic, now we have conversions that would actually be measured once the users would click the button, and you can see not only where the users come from, but also that they make some useful actions. And that's it. I hope that was useful. If you have any questions, just go ahead in the comments and write them out. I will try to cover them in the next videos or just respond to them right away. And there would be a separate video with how to set up GA4 on Google Tag Manager with event tracking, and basically very similar to this one, but in Google Analytics version 4, the newer one. See ya.